Today, I'm going to share with you my 5 top long run nutrition tips. 4 years ago, I had never ran more than 6 miles or 10 kilometers. And if I knew then what I know today about nutrition and long runs, I would have gotten to running 100 kilometers or 62 miles plus much faster. What I've learned is that we unintentionally, as humans, put ourselves at a disadvantage with what we ingest into our bodies. This includes food and other substances like alcohol that we put into our systems. I don't know about you, but I was a much better athlete before college than during college. And a big reason for that is during college, I wasn't eating as healthily. Growing up, my mom was always into healthy eating, and she actually became a nutritionist when I was at a young age. So I was used to getting lots of nutrients, even if I didn't realize it growing up. So once I got to college, even though my parents did their best to tell me how to eat healthily, and I didn't start drinking alcohol until junior year, I found that I just wasn't in as good of shape as I was in high school. And for the longest time, I just assumed that the older you get, the worse shape you get in. Well, I hate to break it to you, but getting older is just an excuse for your shape, for your cardiovascular, for your strength decreasing. Because at 34 years old, I am in better shape than I ever have been in my entire life. And one of the biggest reasons why is the first long run nutrition tip I have for you today: minimizing unhealthy foods and substances like alcohol. Now, when I graduated college, I was still drinking and not eating as healthily. I was eating out a lot, and I wasn't getting as many nutrients and vitamins and minerals in my diet as I needed, but I was consistently working out. There was a time when I was working out 7 days a week and even doing 2 workouts a day between yoga sculpt classes, spinning classes, taking bike rides, and hiking. I was combining all of this and I felt pretty good. I even told myself that maybe I was getting in better shape than I was in high school. And I always had this voice in the back of my head telling me, how good would you feel and how high could you perform as an athlete if you completely turned your nutrition around? That means cutting out alcohol and changing my diet to something even stricter than what I grew up with my mom as a nutritionist. The first time I had this realization was at a 10 a.m. hot yoga class after a night of heavier drinking than I probably should have done and eating super unhealthy, but I was still at yoga class and I was still performing really well. And I thought to myself, wow, this is what I can do with all of these toxins in my system. I wonder what I could do if I turn this around. Fast forward to today, and leading up to any race that I have a strict routine that has transformed me from just being a hardcore workout machine into a serious award-winning ultra runner with asthma. This past year, I not only ran my first 100K race, I won it. And a big part of that is because 3 to 4 months before any race, I cut out alcohol completely and I focus my diet on low inflammation foods. That means eating lots of plants. And if I am eating animal products, I make sure to eat high quality animal products. So I highly recommend that at the very least you minimize your alcohol intake and your unhealthy food intake 3 to 4 months leading up to a race. Cutting alcohol out of your diet and your life alone has incredible benefits. First of all, it's important to recognize that when alcohol enters your body, or when any form of toxin enters your body, so that could be alcohol, that could be unhealthy food, that could be any sort of other substance that enters your body, that could be environmental factors. When it enters your body is very protective of itself. So when alcohol enters your body's number one goal is to get it out of your body. So what does this mean? This means that other normal processes that your body does every second, every minute, every hour, every day go to the back burner while it focuses on expelling this toxin from your body. Well, what this means for your training is that you're not going to recover as well. This is why, by extracting that toxin from your diet, alcohol, unhealthy foods, etc., you are empowering your body to do what it does best. This includes improved recovery. Alcohol dehydrates your body and slows muscle repair. So during your training, if you find that you are increasing your miles, but you don't feel like you're feeling any better when you run that 10, 15, or 20-mile long run, it might be because after that long run, you're putting either unhealthy foods or even alcohol into your body. I've experienced this firsthand. As a long distance cyclist, I remember after doing a 40 or 50-mile day, I would love to just sit down and have some beer. And I didn't think that this was a problem because I burned all these calories. I knew I had the calories to at least drink some beer and have an unhealthy meal. But what I didn't realize is that I was hurting my body for next time. I was basically taking that 40 or 50-mile bike ride and telling my body, hey, I know you just put out all this effort and you want to recover right now, but here is a bunch of unhealthy food. Here's some alcohol in the system. So instead of giving my body the nutrients that I needed to grow and to get to the next level, I was polluting it. Alcohol and unhealthy food also really messes with your hydration. If you are eating highly processed food, deep fried food, you're drinking beer, you're drinking alcohol while you're training, your body isn't going to get the hydration it needs. Even if you're drinking a lot of water, your body isn't actually going to be able to retain the water. Alcohol and other unhealthy foods and substances act as a diuretic, meaning that the hydration your muscles and your body needs to recover, that your body and your muscles needs to improve your performance when you're out there running on these 10, 15, 20, 25, 30-mile long runs, or your 50-mile races, your 100K races, your 100-mile races, your body doesn't have the hydration it needs. Now, when you cut alcohol out of your diet and when you eat healthier foods, you're also going to improve your sleep quality. Alcohol specifically has been shown to inhibit deep sleep. Well, when you deeply sleep, you're not only healing your brain, you're healing your body. The list goes on and on and on. By cutting alcohol out, you're going to increase your endurance. Your cardiovascular system is just going to run more efficiently because your body isn't worried about getting rid of these toxins all the time. You're going to reduce your risk of injury because alcohol can weaken your bones. It can also weaken your reaction times. It's also going to help you optimize your weight. Now, back in 2022, I ran my second official marathon, my third marathon overall in Honolulu, Hawaii. And I weighed just under 200 pounds. I didn't even know that I weighed this much at that time, but I was still drinking. I wasn't eating as healthy. I was eating these massive quantities. And my weight, those extra 40 pounds, equated to at least 30 minutes to an hour of added time to my marathon race. This also equated to 40 more pounds of added pressure on my joints, on my muscles. I knew that if I was going to take it to the next level and run a 50-mile race and beyond, I needed to not only lose 30 to 40 pounds, but keep the weight off. And since I've done that, my times have increased significantly and my injuries have decreased. You're also going to have improved energy levels and you're going to enhance your VO2 max. What is your VO2 max? This is the max amount of energy, amount of power that you can release in your body in a cardiovascular activity. When you're doing cardio, you have aerobic and anaerobic energy production, okay? When you're in aerobic, that means that your body is producing energy in an aerobic state using oxygen. When you are in an anaerobic state, that means your body isn't getting enough oxygen anymore to create energy. So alcohol basically decreases the amount of oxygen you're able to take into your body. So by cutting alcohol out, you are improving your energy output. And, when you cut alcohol out and you cut out these unhealthy foods and other substances, you're going to improve your immune system. I don't know about you, but the less I get sick in a training period, the better my training goes. And if I do get sick in a training period, I get over whatever I'm fighting much faster. This past training sequence leading up to my 100K race, about 8 weeks out, I caught COVID. And since I wasn't drinking and I was eating really healthily, I was still running with COVID. I think I only took 1 day off when I had COVID, and it was my typical rest day. And then I was still running because even though I was sick, I didn't feel that bad. And I was giving my body the nutrients, the minerals, and just the love that it needed to get through that. I could go on and on and on the health benefits of cutting alcohol out of your system and changing your diet to focus on whole foods, getting rid of those processed foods, minimizing high inflammation foods, and just really eating a diet that your body likes. But the proof is in the results. This past year, I won my first 100K Ultra that I'd ever ran because I was prepared, I was healthy, my training went extremely well, and I was fueled properly. My body feels better than it ever has, and I'm ready for more. My whole reason of launching Athlete with Asthma was to create a brand that I could represent as a professional athlete with asthma to inspire others with any perceived limitations in their life get to new heights and achieve what they may have once looked at as impossible dreams. So, what about fueling for your actual long runs or any runs that you take? Well, my second top long run nutrition tip is to eat anywhere between 200 and 500 calories per hour during your long runs. And when you're ready to get even more technical with this, you should be getting at least 60 grams of carbs and somewhere around 5 grams of protein in that hour. Now, when I ran my first 50-mile race a couple years back, I was focused solely on the 200 to 500 calorie mark. Specifically, I was shooting for 300 or 400 calories per hour. And I was getting it. The thing is, at that point, I was doing a lot of experimenting with tracking my calories, and I was putting a lot of focus on protein in my life. Because when I'm not running, I'm usually either taking high intensity interval training classes or HIIT classes, or I'm taking yoga classes, or I'm teaching yoga. Therefore, protein is really important for my body, and it is important for all of our bodies for muscle recovery. The thing is, as a runner and during a run, having an excess amount of protein can really mess with your body. Now, all of our bodies are different to one degree or another, so you need to experiment based on your body. Well, in my 50-mile race a couple years back, I decided that, hey, I'm going to have my amazing significant other, Tatiana, help me prepare different foods like homemade bread and sweet potato cookies. I also made sure to have a bunch of kombucha with me because I love kombucha. It is not only really good for your gut and your microbiome, it also has tons of electrolytes and nutrients that you need to revitalize and energize your body. So I had those with me. And then I also brought a ton of Orgain chocolate protein shakes with me. I did this because every morning when I get up, the first thing I eat is a protein shake. I've been doing this for years, and it really helps me get the nutrients I need for the day all in an easy drink. Now, I usually make these myself, and I put different fruits in it. I add greens of some sort. I also add either broccoli, cauliflower, or Brussels sprouts. I add hemp protein, I add collagen, and I add a little bit of bone broth protein. And then I top it off with chia seeds and sometimes even some yogurt. So I knew that this would go down okay, and I had been told I had never ran 50 miles before. I had ran 50K, and I had ran multiple long runs in a row, back-to-back Saturday, Sunday, but I never ran 50 miles before, and I was told that at some point I wouldn't want to eat anymore. So I was like, great, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a bunch of these Orgain protein shakes and I'm just going to drink them. And that's what I did. Each protein shake had somewhere around, I think, 160, maybe 180 calories. And they also had 20 grams of protein. So I told myself, well, biologically, what this is going to do is there's going to be some carbs, some sugar in the protein shake. And the protein that I get is going to help my body recover itself. It's going to help my muscles rebuild. The theory was right on, but I was eating a lot more than 5 grams of protein per hour, and I was not getting even close to 60 grams of carbs. I was probably getting more like 40 grams of protein per hour and 5 or 10 grams of carbs at best. Now, this was better than nothing for me in this race, but I definitely felt as I got deeper into the race that I really needed sugar to keep me going. So, what I did is I actually did have gummies, and my favorite gummies are the Scratch Lab Energy Chews. I have them linked in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast, or they're linked in the YouTube description if you're watching this on YouTube. I love these gummies that have really got me through some really hard parts of races when my body told myself that, hey, we need sugar, we need it now, otherwise you're going to completely run out of energy. Well, this happened during this race, and I walked a lot of this race, my 50-mile race. I did not give myself enough carbs, and at some point, my stomach really did not appreciate the amount of protein I was giving it. Thank God I was intaking the protein with chocolate because chocolate was the only reason why my body was still taking in the calories. Well, I knew that if I was ever going to do this again, I needed to fuel differently. Ultimately, in my 50-mile race, I got 29th out of about 45 or 50 finishers, and I did finish the race in 13 hours. And I didn't use my inhaler the entire race. But at the end of the race, I was completely wrecked. I even told myself I don't want to run again. I have zero desire to run marathons, zero desire to run ultra marathons, zero desire to run any sort of long run ever. Maybe I'll run a 3 to 5 mile run after this. Well, I'll tell you this. A big reason why I felt that way is because I did so bad with my fueling. The good thing is, since I did give myself so much protein, I was pretty close to back to normal within 48 or 72 hours because my muscles did have a lot of protein to rebuild themselves. But I immediately felt terrible and my pace wasn't great for that race. Fast forward a year later, my 100K Ultra that I won, I fueled myself a lot differently. I not only aimed for the higher end of the calorie range, so instead of going for 200 to 300 calories per hour, I was shooting for about 400 or 500 calories per hour. I also focused on carbs. Starting 3 days before my race, Tatiana started cooking my favorite high carb meals. This included pizza. We did it without cheese because I didn't want to have that added inflammation in my system during the race. This included homemade bread. We even made some homemade sun butter and some hummus to make these sun butter and hummus sandwiches. I even made a butter sandwich. And she also made me my favorite muffins. So I prepared all this really healthy, high carb, high nutrient foods for my race. And leading up to the race, I did increase my carb intake. Now, retrospectively, I should have even eaten more carbs leading up to the race, but hey, I still got an even better result than I was aiming for. My goal was to finish the race in 12 hours, and if that meant that I was going to top 3, then I was going to be really happy with that. And I ended up getting first overall male, second overall because of how I prepared. Now, this brings me to my third top long run nutrition tip. You need to bring your own fuel. I don't know about you, but I've completed dozens of endurance fitness events at this point. And while there are aid stations in these longer endurance events, I remember when I was an endurance cyclist and I was doing 80-mile and 100-mile rides, there'd be a aid station every 15 to 20 miles. Well, the problem with aid stations, and I've seen this across every single endurance event I've ever done, long rides, long runs, marathon, short runs, whatever, any sort of fitness event that has aid stations, the problem is, even though they have food at the aid stations, none of it is healthy. And if you don't bring your own food, you have to eat it because you need to get your calories in. You need to get that 200 to 500 calories in per hour. Well, refueling with electrolytes at aid stations, my favorite electrolytes are the Liquid IV electrolytes. I usually put 2 to 3 packs in my Camelbacks while I'm doing long runs, and then I always add 2 to 3 more of these into my running pack, into my running bladder whenever I refuel. But you don't always have to bring this with you unless there's a specific brand that you want to make sure you have. Because the aid stations will typically have electrolytes. They will also typically have some sort of gummies, and they may even have gels. If you're interested in getting some Liquid IV, I have it linked in the show notes if you're listening to this as a podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it is linked in the description below this video. You'll also most likely find chews and gels, and you may even find salt at aid stations. But you're also going to find a bunch of candy and unhealthy foods. Now, the good thing is that if you do ingest these unhealthy foods, your body's going to burn them right away. But it still puts you at a disadvantage because a lot of the stuff is highly processed. There's a lot of sugar in it, which may be good from an energy perspective, but it's not great for your body. Well, I told myself that if I was going to continue being a serious endurance athlete and ultimately a professional ultra runner, that the only way I was going to continue doing this was if I didn't have to poison myself at all these aid stations with all of this highly processed, highly unhealthy food, which is why going into every race, I am so grateful for Tatiana's help creating such amazing healthy food, high carb food for me to take with me. So I not only eat healthy food for months leading up to the race, I eat healthy food throughout the race as well. Now, depending on how long your long run is, maybe you are just doing a 10 or 15-mile run. Maybe you're doing a 20-mile run. Maybe you're running a marathon. Maybe you're running a 50K. Maybe you are gearing up to run a 50-mile, 100K, or 100-mile race. Well, you are going to have to check in with your body to see how long your body is okay eating and processing solid foods. Because at some point, it's not going to like it very much. For me, I can get away with running a marathon with solid foods. I can get away with a 50K with solid foods. But once we get to the 35, 40 plus mile mark, there's no way I'm eating solid foods anymore for a number of reasons. Along with the fact that my stomach just starts rejecting any type of solid foods, and I can't even swallow solid foods anymore after about 35 miles, my mouth gets tired of chewing. And when you're out there for 8, 10, 12 plus hour days, or you get to the 24-hour days, do you really think that you're going to want to be chewing 200 to 500 calories per hour? So you're not only racing, now you are in an eating competition. And a lot of people call ultra running an eating competition because it is. But the reality is what you need to do, and this is my fourth top long run nutrition tip, is you need to have a strategy of how to get these 200 to 500 calories in your system without having to chew, without having to eat. Well, I told you that in my first 50-mile race that I did, I had never experienced my jaw getting so tired I couldn't chew anymore. I had not experienced my stomach rejecting solid food yet. But I was advised that this was a thing. So what I did is I brought these chocolate Orgain protein shakes with me that I got from Costco. I think they might have actually had 30 grams of protein per shake. And this is what I drank. And really what I found out is later on in the race, all I could really do is drink those shakes. I could put one of these gummies in my mouth. I couldn't even chew it. And then I would have my electrolytes in my water, and I would literally take the gummy and swallow it whole by washing it down with water because I couldn't chew it. I couldn't really swallow it. I kind of tricked my body into ingesting it by taking it down with water. And then I would drink these protein shakes. That is how I was getting my calories. I couldn't eat pretzels anymore. I brought pretzels. I couldn't eat bread anymore. Couldn't eat these cookies anymore. I think I got half a cookie in at mile 42, and that's it. Well, I knew that I needed a better strategy for my 100K this year. I knew it was 12 more miles in my 50, so at some point I was not going to be able to chew. And think about it, if you're chewing all day, in addition to running all day, you're actually burning more calories. You're putting more strain on your body. So if you can figure out how to get 200 to 500 calories per hour into your system without chewing, without using your energy to chew, you're actually going to have more energy to do other things. You're going to have more energy to run. So what did I do? I was introduced to the super high carb scratch powder. Now, this powder gives me 400 calories per serving. So what I did is in every Camelback bladder that I had for my race, we put 400 calories of this in it and 90 calories of liquid IV in it. So I had 500 calories in my pack. I also had 2 or 3 of these in every pack, and I ate them every lap. Each lap was 12.5 miles, or around 20 kilometers. It took me about 2.5 hours to finish each lap. So I was automatically getting 200 to 250 calories into my system every hour just by drinking. Okay. And then I was eating 2 or 3 of these. Well, this is 160 calories per pack. So 3 of these is 480 calories. There is your 400 to 500 calories per hour. And that doesn't include any of the pizza, muffins, homemade bread, or all the fruit that we brought with us. So I gave myself a major advantage. And every single lap, I got a new pack with 400 calories of this in it, 90 calories of this, and 2 to 3 more of these. I felt amazing the entire race. And I felt amazing after the race. And even though I was limping around, I was not crawling around. I felt great after my 100K race, and I won it. Now, I've experimented with a lot of different ways to get my calories in liquid form. And this is by far my favorite, which is why I'm linking to the super high carb scratch powder in the show notes below and in the description below this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Now, my 5th and final top long run nutrition tip comes back to running as a lifestyle, or movement as a lifestyle, exercise as a lifestyle. Well, MD Peter Attia's research has revealed that if there was one silver bullet in health and wellness, it would be movement. It would be consistent movement or consistent exercise, because research shows that it decreases all-cause mortality rates by 35%. Just because you start exercising consistently, running consistently, maybe even doing long runs consistently, doesn't mean that you can eat anything you want. I've already talked through today how even if you're running and you're earning the calories, maybe making a choice other than a 200 to 300 calorie IPA and a unhealthy fast food meal to refuel yourself might be a better idea and much healthier on your body in the long term. The reality is when you start working out consistently, running consistently, you're going to have people tell you, hey, you're running, you can eat whatever you want. This isn't true, which is why my 5th and final top long running nutrition tip is to track your weight on a weekly basis to see if you're over or under fueling yourself. This is how we check to see how much you're actually eating and how much you're actually burning. As I shared, I gained 40 pounds leading up to my Honolulu Marathon race in 2022. And I did that because I was not tracking my calories. And even if I was tracking my calories, I was not weighing myself. Because the reality is, if you don't want to take the time to track your calories, great. Weigh yourself weekly. That's going to tell you if you're eating too much or not. And then if you're gaining weight, then you're probably eating too much and you just need to eat less. But the reality is, just because you're working out doesn't mean that you can just eat whatever you want. And that's why I created my healthy living guide with my 3 pillars of healthy living. Pillar number 1 is movement. Pillar number 2 is tracking. And pillar number 3 is accountability. When you take these 3 pillars and put them together, you are empowering yourself to live a healthier life. And as a runner tackling long runs, tackling ultras, training for ultras, using long runs, you are going to start performing even better than you are now. Now, I've packaged these 3 pillars of healthy living in my healthy living guide that I have linked in the show notes and in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube. You can also go to www.athletewithasthma.com/healthy-living-guide to grab your free copy today. Now, what I share with you in this guide is only going to take you 3 minutes or less to read and start integrating into your life. And it is the exact 3 pillars of healthy living that allowed me to lose 40 pounds and become a competitive professional ultra runner with asthma. So I highly recommend you grab that free guide and at the very least, start tracking your weight on a weekly basis to see if you're over or even under eating. For my 100K Ultra this year, I weighed myself after my peak week of training when I ran 100 miles in 6 days because I take every Monday off during training. And I ran 75 miles in 3 days. And I did this in the mountains around 9,000 elevation. Well, what I found is going into this week, I weighed somewhere around 157 pounds. And at the end of the week, even though I thought I was eating enough, I actually lost 5 pounds in about 7 or 8 days. And while technically running a long run or an ultra race at a lower weight is going to make you faster, losing 5 pounds in a little over a week due to training means that your body probably isn't getting the nutrients it needs to recover. So when I saw this scale, I'm like, I need to up my caloric intake significantly with healthy foods. So when you track your weight, you're not only tracking to make sure that you're not going to gain a ton of weight, you're making sure that you're not losing too much weight, especially as you get closer to your race. One of your goals might be to lose 30 or 40 pounds like I did leading up to a race. Well, what I did in order to do that is I knew my race was about 9 or 10 months out when I went on my weight loss journey. So for the first 3 to 4 months, my sole goal was to drop the 30 to 40 pounds. And that's what I did. But I did that before I started my actual training for my race. So I dropped the weight. And then when I got to my 155 to 160 weight, then I started my training program for my 50-mile race. So really important when you're looking at this stuff, it can be really hard on your body to lose weight and train for a race because you're trying to increase your performance and lose weight by cutting your calories and having a caloric deficit at the same time. So I highly recommend that you lose the weight first and then go into your strict training for the race. And if you want help with this, remember to grab your free healthy living guide, and I'll see you in the next one.